Big joke. It's a fucked up world. Here we are in. I ain't going nowhere.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Reason Reborn, and I am here with my co-host, Cardiac Sumo. How are you doing, sir? Happy Memorial Day. Oh, I forgot. I shouldn't say Happy Memorial Day because Majority Taylor Greene will come after me.
I'm going to ignore that. Just say likewise. Just enjoying a Monday with no messages from work, I guess. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I suppose I should be reflecting more, but...
Really quick, what is your
I'm not
stance
lie
on that whole, I guess, faux pas by Kamala Harris?
What did she say again?
She said Happy Memorial. She said, she didn't even, I don't even think she said Happy Memorial Day. I think she was like, enjoy the long weekend, everybody. And then maybe she said after that Happy Memorial Day, but she was basically telling people to enjoy the long weekend.
It's a long weekend. You may as well relax. Like, I don't think it's that big a deal. Like, I guess idealistically, we should be reflecting on, the sacrifices of our troops, which, I mean, one, we should be doing that year round, not just on a day, but what's the big fucking deal, really?
And that's pretty much my position is, especially as someone who actually worked at Arlington Cemetery. So I actually know how big the day is as far as honoring the troops. I was there for a couple of years where Bush Jr. and a couple of years of, maybe a year or two of Obama. So I saw how big of a day is. I was there when they were putting the flags, and I've actually spoke to someone whose father was a veteran, and she was there, visiting her father's grave, and we were just talking about things, and I get the gravity of the how the day is for those who have loved ones that they go to honor in a place like Arlington Cemetery, which is the rest place of many of our fallen soldiers, be it from in combat or just, they met the requirements to be able to be buried there, what have you. That being said, I also know the other side, and the other side is a lot of people, to be honest, look forward to the time off like they do with every other holiday. Let's be real. Ain't nobody sweating Christmas because they're really ready to remember the birth of, Christ. They want their gifts and they want their day off. Straight up. Yeah, President's Day. Are we really, really caring about them? No, we looking for those sales.
That's not to say you shouldn't care or anything, but are we just going to pretend just ignore reality? The fact is most people do not in practice.
Yeah.
And
it's not even
not mutually exclusive. It's not like saying enjoy your weekend is saying fuck the troops or something.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's not like you don't care, but it's not always the main focus. We're not all here today and cool. It's Monday. It's our day off. We should spend doing nothing but going over World War II or World War I or whatever military conflict history and revisiting stuff today's not the day that you should make it mandatory to watch Saving Private Ryan or something like that, But there are places that do that, like HBO every year during Veterans Day and Memorial Day, they'll play either the Pacific or the Band of Brothers series, which they play the Pacific today. Or you could be like me and I could educate you on World War II history and make you feel all sad and shit by hearing how over 800 people got eaten by sharks. Yeah, stuff like that.
I will say it's probably the first Memorial Day in a while that I've like learned something, so can't complain. But I do remember now the little conflict there. It was Nikki Haley. I had to look up who said it.
Oh, it was Nikki Haley.
Calling
Sorry,
her.
I said majority. Although she probably will come for me because she's kind of like this boogeyman anyway.
But she used a specific term like unprofessional and unfit because of that. And I just thought, you going after your colleague about something like that harshly is itself unprofessional.
Yeah.
If I'm at my job and some coworker makes like an arguable, verbal faux pas, I can't just like go out to the meeting and start fucking blasting them like some kind of maniac. That's not professional. That's not how adults are supposed to behave in a workplace. So like, I don't get the, even if you want to criticize it and say like, if, you as a representative of the U.S. government, you should be taking the moment to sort of, remind people of the reason for the day and all that stuff. That's fine. But like to go that harsh about it, like that's childish and it's purely political. Like, let's not dick around here. You're not doing that. I don't know. It's just really fucking cynical.
Yeah. Also, let's keep this in context, people. She said that on Friday, which is, or no, she actually said that on Thursday, the day before the weekend started for most people.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing you would just say when you're leaving office.
And today she actually said, like, gave her like, official reflective remarks about the day. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, today she said, we honor those members of our military who sacrificed their lives in order to defend our freedoms. We owe these heroes and their loved ones everything, not just on Memorial Day, every day. And of course, she attended the ceremonial wreath laying that the president does every year at Arlington Cemetery during the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Which, by the way, you normally don't see the vice president there. It's usually just the president in most cases. So that was kind of a different change in the thing. But she was there with Biden for the ceremony, So, yeah. So clearly she understands the gravity of the day.
Saying, enjoy your long weekend or whatever is like everybody's like, especially if you go to like an office and you're like leaving and it's a 3-day weekend, everybody just fucking says that as they leave. Like it's just a common phrase because it's true. You have a 3-day weekend. So yeah, I don't know. Imagine me this fucking childish, but we live in a country where a tan suit was in the news cycle. So let's not kid ourselves that we're fucking professional now.
Exactly. So yeah. Whatever. But yes, to tell somebody happy Memorial Day, like I get it. It sounds weird, but it's just a habitual thing that we do for holidays. I feel like as I've said, like about people who get mad when you say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas and all that. It's like it's all just you wishing someone well on that day or for this holiday. Don't take it beyond that. I'm not trying to steal your thunder or force you into believing into what I believe in. Just wishing you well on that day. Just stop making it bigger than it needs to be. Please.
As an atheist, I can say I've never been offended by Merry Christmas. It's like, to me, it's always just been like, have a good day or whatever. Like, I don't think about it.
That's how I've always, especially as I've gotten older, I've always looked at it. It's like no one's trying to force any agenda on you people, for goodness sake.
If you were to pull up with me like, hey, you enjoying Jesus's birthday and all these fucking giving, I'm like, all right.
Yeah,
be different, but I don't think anybody's ever actually
give somebody the riot act as to why you should be celebrating this day and blah 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 and all that, and then you hit them with the Merry Christmas. Like, okay, so you literally were just using this as a platform for spreading your beliefs. Okay, cool.
If somebody said God bless you and you're like, I'm Hindu or whatever, like,
right,
Like,
it's like they're not telling you better believe in Jesus Christ, and, the Lord. They're just wishing you again. It's well wishes, people.
Most
Context.
of those, even I say those phrases like you don't really think of them as literal meanings. They're just phrases we use. They're just kind of, like you said, habitual.
Yeah, they're habitual, definitely. Now, if you start reading me like, part of Genesis, then okay, you kind of are making it an agenda, but no. I want to tell you, God bless you. Have a good day. Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa or whatever, because the day happens to be Kwanzaa. But they're not trying to make you celebrate in their beliefs or whatever. Stop it, people. Stop it. By the way, this episode is going to be pretty filled with how people need to understand context.
I would just like to say real quick before we hop off this, that this is something that I wanted to like go look it up real quick to see where this happened, like which news station. And apparently this happened on Twitter, which just kind of shows you where, professionalism in politics is at. Like, I guess Kamala tweeted this on, Twitter, obviously, and Nikki Haley retweeted this. So like, I don't really want to hear this argument about fucking professionalism from a grown-ass woman having a Twitter spat.
Yeah.
Using the power of the office behind her. Like, no. Sorry.
No offense, she don't even got no job. So she chill. I know you want to be president, Nikki, but it ain't time yet. Chill out. You're never going to be president anyway. Huh?
She ain't got the streak.
Oh, God. You in the street. Where is she at? She don't have no career either, do she?
Hey, whoa.
Is she still?
Your old buddy. She's preparing. He's in preparation.
She ain't got no job. And rightfully so.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to take it any further before I get canceled.
Nah. She's, man. I just don't like her. It's cool. You like your evil woman.
Like is a word. I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah, well, I should have said lust. You're right. I mean, she's in your age range. I just looked her up. She's only 40. How about that? She's in striking distance. She's in striking distance. She's in striking distance, bro.
I don't need this problem.
She don't have a kid, so she's not a MILF, but she's close. She's close.
I'm not taking the bait. I'm not commenting any further than what I just said.
I mean, she's a brunette, so, she's shading towards the redhead thing, Put a little,
Again, me.
Put a little sauce in there to go along with the streak. You can get your rogue thing going on.
Look here, bro. In my future, there's a presidential run, all right? And I don't need whatever soundbite you're trying to get out of me trying to fuck it up, all right? I know better. I was raised in the internet age, all right? Not going to catch me up there at the podium and somebody pulls out their fucking phone and says, you said, what sexist thing about fucking... Nope, not me.
What?
Securing the presidency. We haven't even said her name. I'm sure a lot of people don't know who we're talking about. But
no, they don't. They really don't.
I'm like, they're like, what the fuck is the streak? Who are they?
Just tell them. Real ones know. That's all.
Yeah.
All right. So because I was not really as prepared as I should be, because I actually did want to have a bit of a lighter episode and not like scream and holler about politics, because I've had a really good relaxing weekend. I'm going to scream and holler about some non-political things, which are kind of political, more social, but kind of lighten the mood and kind of force this guy to speak about something that he has no interest or care about, which is sports. Sports. Now, you seem to be like you were going to be out of your element in this, but you're actually going to be right in your wheelhouse because I'm not going to hit you with like, we're going to discuss what is the pressure on LeBron James to be tied 2-2 in the first round of the playoffs with his second best player potentially out for the whole series dealing with the injury. No, I'm not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about the gravity of the Montreal Canadiens. God, I say Canucks. I've made everybody in Canada mad by saying that. The Montreal Canadiens upsetting the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round, and how NHL has mad upsets all the time and how wild they are in the first round. No, we're not going to talk about hockey, which will probably confuse you even more than what I said about LeBron James.
I at least recognize the name LeBron James.
Yeah, exactly. Because if I would have said Austin Matthews or Toffoli or Petrie, you'd be like, who the fuck are these people?
I thought you were gonna put these are all basketball players except for the one name I just made up. Which one was it?
No, all the people I named were hockey players. It's just a funny thing.
There you go.
Nah. Not going to talk about anything. What we are going to talk about, first of all, is have you heard the stories that have been going on during the NBA playoffs? The subset of like craziness that's been happening with fans?
I saw something about somebody spitting on somebody or something like that. That's all I've seen.
So to educate you and to like summarize it for people who might know or who might not know either. The NBA playoffs have been going on for the past week and a half or so, and there have been some really, really wild incidents involving fans and the players that have been really, really foul. The first being Russell Westbrook of the Washington Wizards. He got injured during a game, and he was being carried out to the locker room, and he's trying to make it to the locker room, and an opposing team fan throws popcorn on him as he's walking in to the locker room, just randomly while yelling at him. And, he was mad about that. The fan was escorted from the arena, and he's since been banned from coming to games for doing that. Then we had the second incident where, was it Donovan Mitchell? No, John Morant, point guard of the Memphis Grizzlies. They're in Utah, which already has some history with their fans, including their fans being racially insensitive to their own players and saying things like that. Well, his family was at the game watching him play, and the Utah fans were harassing his family, including saying sexual things to his mother while his father is sitting right beside her. Talk about how they're going to fuck his mother and shit like that. So that was incident 2. And of course, they have been they've been found out, and those guys are going to get banned too. Incident 3, the one that you just mentioned, in New York, the Atlanta Hawks playing the New York Knicks. Atlanta Hawks are beating the Knicks. Trae Young, star player for the Atlanta Hawks, having a great game. He's standing on the sidelines ready to take the ball to throw it into the game. And a fan immediately behind him in the front row. And if you know anything about how seating works in sports, when you're someone in the front row, you're generally somebody who has some type of means of money, which money and means don't make you a better person, clearly. But you spend a lot of money to be an ignorant motherfucker. And the guy literally spits on Trae Young while his back is turned. And again, he was found, he was banned, and in a couple of these cases, people are being charged with criminal charges, being given criminal charges, including this latest incident where at the end of the game.
Or?
At the end of the game, was it last night or night before last? It was last night, I believe. At the end of the game, Kyrie Irving, a former Boston Celtics player, came back with his new team, Brooklyn Nets. Now, there's already been heat with him because he didn't have a, stellar time with Boston. They have issues with some of the things that he's done and said. He didn't perform well. He kind of disappointed the fans. So there was already heat there. Anyway, but as he's leaving the court, a fan throws a water bottle at his head, barely missing him. So this fan has been charged with assault with a dangerous weapon, and of course he's been banned. So, a lot of people are like wondering, like, what the fuck is going on, and this started another heated conversation about this. Because, like I said, again, you've had previous incidents like you had in Utah before, with the players having to deal with racial stuff, where like a group of people were saying racial comments and slurs to their own players. And things like that, and just all sorts of other random incidents that have happened over the years. But it seems to like have doubled down now that fans have been brought back to the arenas for this year's playoffs. So now that you know all of this, what is your feelings on all of this stuff?
Now I see why it had become a conversation, because I only saw like this spit thing briefly, but it seemed like a pretty big conversation just based on that. But apparently it was one of almost a half dozen. Real quick, because I think you said like this all happened during like this playoff, right? So just like the past week.
This is over the past week, yeah.
And this is an unusual amount of this dickishness, or
yes, like I said, like you had the Utah incident. And you had a couple of incidents, but they seem to be dispersed out. But this is like a real heavy concept. It's like bam, bam, bam. Like I've never seen it happen this way.
Okay. So much to think about that. First of all, just the relationship that like regular people or fans, if you want to call them that, have with celebrities, where you think you can just abuse a motherfucker. Like, I don't know. Maybe these people are the kind of people who would just treat any random asshole on the street like that. But I've never understood these people who like pay money to go to these shows, who, that people talk about like how nerds always focus on things, but I've always found something interesting with like sports fans. Like they will follow sports statistics like weirdly close to that. They'll tell you about some random game that happened in like 93 and know the exact score of like a particular game. They're very, the sport takes up a large amount of space in their brain and time in their life. So for somebody who's so passionate about a thing, it's always weird to me that fans seem to have this sort of confrontational relationship with the athletes that they are paying to see. I think it shows like a really weird sense of entitlement, like an irrational sense that you can just start treating these people however you want. Like, because when you first brought up you said some of these cases were going to be charged as like crimes. I was actually about to say like, are any of these going to be charged as crimes? Because some of them really are crimes. But I first started with like the spit one, because I'm like, I'm sure that's a crime already, but we're in like the COVID era. Like you should really have it in your head that you should not be doing shit like that.
Yeah.
Not that it was appropriate before, but like just given the past year we fucking had, you should be really cognizant of the danger of spreading germs. So that dude should be tried for like a serious crime. I don't understand the sports ball culture that yields this kind of behavior. I'm confused by it. That's why I had to ask, like, is this like a typical amount of this kind of stuff? Because I've heard every once in a while of like, fans like yelling things at maybe the opposing team members or something like that. But like, this is really out of control.
Verbal vitriol has been something that unfortunately has kind of been commonplace, because going back to that, when I was first talking about the Utah incident, before what happened with the player's family, and how like players were being like yelled at and talked about by the fans, like the players of the team were saying how, like, yeah, we even feel uncomfortable. And it's generally, by the way, of course, in all these cases, the players are African American. So, and the offenders have all been white, I think, except for the one in New York, maybe. I'm not sure. But the players have been like having this discussion about how there's some, because Utah is famous for being very, very hostile, especially towards African American players. They have this running history. So does Boston. The sports culture in Boston is wild because it has gone on for like fucking decades. I remember Jim Rice, who was a star baseball player for the Boston Red Sox. He had recounted how like he's like, an all-star, hitting really well, 20 home runs, like great player for them. And he played right field, and he would stand out in right field, and he would just hear the N-word constantly tossed at him by his hometown fans and stuff like that. So there is a history. It's not like it's a new thing. It's just that now, like, the physical element is kind of ramping up more right now, along with the verbal abuse. And it's a serious problem. It's scary, especially, again, coming out of COVID. Why is this a thing? Like,
I mean, I remember during the entire, year of COVID, a couple of stories where like somebody would like spit at a person or like, cough at a person threateningly. It's like, those people should be tried for very serious, like, I don't think it's understating it to say that that's something of like a biological attack. It's very fucking serious. I did have a question just now. Right. So it seems like part of the punishment is always being like, not being able to go to these games, right? Is that the only punishment for bad behavior for fans? Is there never any like fines that happen? I don't know if, when you go to a game, you have to like agree to, being fined if you do something wrong.
No, that's up to like the city or state jurisdiction to do. And again, like I said, fans wilding out is not a like foreign thing. Philadelphia, God bless you, probably the worst place to go to watch a sports game. Sorry if you're from Philadelphia and you're listening to this, but you know exactly what I mean, because y'all are some wild motherfuckers. How wild are these motherfuckers? The football stadium actually has a functioning courtroom and a holding area because they fight so much and have acts of violence at their game so much.
Okay, so maybe maybe it's not a deterrent, because I was gonna say, say you go to like a hotel or something and you damage something, it's understood that you're gonna get like, you'd have to pay for it. You know what I mean? Like, in certain contexts, it's understood that if you do something wrong, if you cause damage, if there would be a fine, not as part of a criminal charge, but just imparted by whatever company is associated with that would fine you. So I'm like, as I'm hearing this and you're talking about how this has been going on for pretty much ever, I'm like, I would think as somebody in control of this shit, I would make it very fucking costly to do any of that stuff. I wouldn't just say like, well, now you can't come to our games anymore. Like, no, I would hit you with something pretty fucking hefty to show everybody else that I'm not fucking around. But I guess the fact that they've been able to get away with it for decades means that there is no effective deterrent.
No, I mean, and to be fair to Philadelphia, one, I don't know if they have that in the new stadium. I think they do have it in the new stadium. I know they had it in the old stadium. But two, for that, it's just usually people arguing back and forth among themselves, fans fighting, doing stuff, getting drunk at games or before games, and acting foolish. So it's not comparable, but it is a sports culture for fans to be unruly and just extra and off the top. Now you're getting a lot more bold action in the form of fans being racially insensitive and threatening towards players. Again, harassing the player's family. There's been several instances even before the John Morant thing where people were like, I don't let my family come to games because of the way fans act towards them. Or if they can, they try to get the team to put them in a press box so they're isolated and away from the general populace and things like that.
Even what you guys mentioned there about, people getting drunk and unruly. So, if you go back, I think it must have been the Super Bowl, I guess. We hadn't had the vaccine talk yet and all that shit. I don't think we did. I can't remember exactly the timeline, but
no,
I guess
it was early January. So
did it happen in Florida?
Yeah, it was in Florida. It was like late January, early February. So the vaccine hadn't really been rolled out.
At the time, we were seeing images of like a bunch of people in the fucking streets, some not wearing masks, all closely tied together. We didn't have much info on, the end being in sight as far as, starting up a vaccination program and all that stuff. And I'd commented at the time, like, in this country, there is just a cultural exception for sports in terms of like how we regard, like they can do some of the wildest shit. And to me, at least looking from the outside, it always feels like people just give it a pass because it's sports. Like you'll hear stories of people like going out in the streets and like breaking things.
No, you shouldn't.
Like you had to explain to me that it's because whenever I heard stories like that, I just figured it was like the people whose team lost being upset. But I think you mentioned cases where when they won.
It's generally you always never hear about the losing team town doing anything. It's always you always hear the winning team. You always see mobs of people. You always see people tearing down light posts, turning over cars, setting them on fire, stuff like that.
I think I never registered it as an act of celebration before you said that. I just always assumed it was an act of like, letting off steam for losing. So that was new to me when you said it. No. But yeah, I bring that up to say, like, it always feels like just in American culture, there's just this kind of blind eye that gets turned to things with regards to sport. And this kind of feels like that because there is you're describing some very serious fucking action. And I feel like a lot of people would just accept this as part of sport that you like. So I mentioned like the getting drunk thing. In my head, I was like, why are you allowed to drink at sporting events? And then I thought, all right, if I'm in charge, I'd be like, no drinking. And then I feel like I get killed for saying that because what do you mean? You can drink at sports games. That's part of it. Like,
yeah. And it's funny because you still have the incidents, even though they limit you to drink. Like a lot of places, like I know with baseball games, 6th inning, they don't serve alcohol after that. Because they want to give you enough time to get to the end of the game to hopefully sober up enough. But of course, people kind of counter that because one, people are usually drinking like mad before, and then they're drinking during the game. And some people do the like 5th, 6th inning rush of let's go get 2-3 beers and then sit down. Okay. You can't buy alcohol anymore.
So that's why they what do you call it? Pre-game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess I never thought about
they do limit like alcohol distribution to certain times. I think some football teams are like end of the 3rd quarter, we don't serve alcohol anymore. So like you kind of got to get it in as much as you can before a certain period.
For those of you guys who are confused, not only do I not like go to sporting events, I also don't drink alcohol. So it's all fucking news to me.
Yeah. And that's their way of trying to deter it. But you still get issues. You still have issues like the father and son years ago who got mad at a baseball player for making a wrong call or the baseball coach for making a wrong call. And they were yelling at the coach and they just decided, fuck this. And both jumped on the field and beat the shit out of the guy. The guy was like in his 60s. And they beat the shit out of him. Of course, they are in jail now. They like got charged for crimes, but yeah.
So it's not funny, but like, do they ever go and interview these people? Like, what the fuck were you thinking? Like, do these people ever explain like what was going on
because
mentally?
they kind of don't want to give I've noticed in sports media when people do dumb shit like that, or the dumb people who get naked and run on the field during the game, they usually turn the cameras off and they don't acknowledge them. They try not to talk about them because they don't want to give them the attention that the people want. They feel like the people want, so they don't necessarily really go in depth into it. A lot of times, I think they may have talked to these guys, but I don't know if I've seen it or not.
And maybe there's an argument to be made about that, but I guess I just look at that and I think, all right, part of me wants to.
You want to know what the fuck are you thinking?
So like you see I'm assuming it's caught on tape. Wow, on tape. Got on digital recording. These motherfuckers, committing these crazy ass acts. And I want to have some like proof that they were somehow caught up in this crazy ass moment. And if you go and check with them later, they're like suddenly sane and regretful somehow. Yeah, I feel like I want that kind of closure to be like, all right, prove to me that you, for some reason, you got caught up in like all the energy of this big crowd and you're not just like a lunatic every fucking day. Because otherwise, why haven't we caught you before now?
Right. Yeah, no.
I need some analysis here to understand what's wrong with you. Because like it takes. I assume if you were to ask the people who knew that father and son, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they'd be like, yeah, they're the kind of guys who would totally like jump onto a field and beat up a 60-year-old stranger. Like, I can't imagine people doing shit like that in a non-sport context.
Yeah, no, it is a wild thing, and like this new rash of behavior, it's just like it's even more wild because it's like after the first guy with the popcorn got his ass busted, why are y'all continually doing stuff? Like, are y'all maybe that unaware that you don't know that if you do this stuff, like, or again, how is it that we're all of a sudden forgotten the rules? It has the pandemic made you lose all sense of the rules, because rules were set in place with how fans would be treated in a lot of cases because of past incidents. Part of the reason why like the drinking was limited in basketball games, and they don't even allow you to have glass bottles anymore, is because the brawl at the Palace. It's funny because you said 93, and I feel like that was around the year or time it happened. No, it happened a little later in the 90s or maybe the early 2000s. I forget what year it was. Somebody will correct me if they hear this and put it in the comments. But there was an incident during a basketball game where a couple of players got into an argument on court, and they were close to brawling and stuff like that, and going back and forth. And this one particular player, Ron Artest, who is known as like an antagonist and kind of a, on-court thug a bit to some people, because he would always mix it up with people, and he would like give hard fouls and stuff like that, questionable play sometimes. He was in the middle of it. So, stuff started on the court. Referees started to break it up, and he runs towards the announcer's table, and he just lays on it, like on his back, like laughing. This was his way of trying to cool off, or like just like trying to chill from the incident. Well, fans in Detroit didn't like him anyway because of who he was. It was a rival team that he played for, Indiana Pacers, and the couple of drunk fans threw glass bottles at him while he was laying on the table. Him being the crazy motherfucker that he was, he got up because he saw who threw it, and he went immediately to the stand and beat the shit out of them, and a couple of his teammates came with him. They beat the shit out of those fans for doing that shit. Of course, they got in huge trouble and like damn near came close to not being allowed to play basketball ever again. And they've had stiff fines and stuff like that. Those guys, I think, eventually got into trouble with the law and stuff like that. But a lot of the onus was put on player restrictions as far as like, if you do this, you're gonna get banned. Like the league came down hard. It was like, players, y'all can't do this. You can't even come off the bench during the team brawl because it might get bigger. Like all this stuff, like all these rules. When something happens with players, the rules are like fucking like the hammer is laid down. But I think the result with the fans, it just ended up like if you do something stupid, you'll get banned. No more glass bottles at games. We can't let you drink at a certain time. Still no like hardcore like rules though that say if you do something, this will happen. The bans are generally like up to the like arenas, and it's not a rule per se. It's just that they do it because they know public perception dictates that you do it. But I don't think that there's no actual real hardcore rules as far as fans are concerned and their conduct. It's just like, please behave.
So wait, it's not like a league ban. So like if I get banned at a particular arena, can I go to like a different state in their arena?
As long as they don't have you banned, yeah.
Okay, I think I misunderstood. I thought it was like an NBA.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no NBA rules, and there's even not even hard, fast team rules. It's just that they do it on their own, like free will. But yeah, there's no league mandate on fans the way there is with players. Because like that brawl, it brought down a lot of like players have to toe the line. Like having a bottle thrown at your head. Somebody actually retweeted me when I was like tweeting about that shit. It was like, what's the fuck's going on? They were like, yo, Ron Artest, the player from the Palace brawl, they were like, he would have beat the shit out of that guy. And I'm like, yeah, like, and you hear players when they talk about it, it's like, yo, this is wrong. Like, they're not saying they want to necessarily do something, but it's like, can you blame them for wanting to do something? If somebody's going to do some shit like that to you, like he was going to hit that guy in the head. You know, you spit on me. Most people, you spit at a person. Like, personally, I think the spitting thing is worse than the bottle because that is the most disgusting, one of the most disgusting things you can do to a human being. You don't spit at nobody. That's just no. That is just like a level of disrespect and disgust that should never be tolerated. You should get your face punched in for some shit like that. Like, but
I don't know, because when you said the bottle thing, I was like, I mean, throw a hard glass bottle from like a distance, especially if from like above, give somebody brain damage, maybe kill them. Like,
yeah,
it's I do think people like, you know, think of certain acts of violence as less dangerous than they really are.
No, you could have really hurt somebody. Even if you didn't hit him in the head, the glass shatters on him. He's going to get cuts. And stuff like that.
Like shatters in his eyes or some
right.
shit goes blinded in one of them.
Like,
there's a lot of things that could go wrong.
That's some dumb shit. You know, and even like with the other night, like, yeah, it was a water bottle, but the fuck? You hit somebody hard enough.
Drunk, like,
but it's like you hit somebody hard enough with any like bottle. It's a full water bottle at that. You can hurt somebody. Like, so I feel like there really needs to be like, it's sad, but you got to have some type of social mandate. Like, you got to get Philadelphia style and make like some type of holding cell in courtroom or something. And just fucking throw the book at these motherfuckers. Because at this point, it's getting too much. It doesn't seem like it's going to stop. And the fact that it's been so frequent now shows that nobody really cares. Again, it could be an effect of, hey, pandemic, everybody's wilding. I mean, we've seen how there's pretty much just about a shooting every other day that at least 4 or more people get injured. Since, you know, restrictions have loosened across the United States. Maybe this is just the like similar result where everybody's just going wild and crazy in that aspect. But I feel like it's something that you need to fucking address and put them like mash on ASAP, because it's gonna get a lot worse before it gets better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if harsher punishments are going to actually serve as a deterrent because, at least from the outside looking in, it seems like being a dick is just kind of part of sports culture.
Yeah.
But you should still do it, if only to stand by the people who work for your organization. You know what I mean? Like, even if it doesn't stop fans from doing it, you as leaders in this organization need to take a stand alongside the people who work for you and have their back. And like, just listening to this, I don't feel like they do, because like, oh, you might be banned from games. Like, that's not a punishment, really. They could just go watch it on TV or something.
And that's where the conversation has got really deep with a lot of like current and former players, because the guy who got the bottle thrown at him, he was like, it's probably some types of form of like subtle racism or something. But even still, we're not fucking like, animals, but fans seem to just always treat us like we're a bunch of fucking animals at the zoo that they could just like tease and throw shit at. And it's like, we're human beings. Stop that shit. Like, it's not, y'all don't have the right to do that shit.
When you were telling that, sir, about, those guys going up there and getting fined, I'm not saying they should go up there and murder people, but that guy should have got his ass beat. Like,
yeah,
he did something that, you could, obviously, the authorities or whatever should handle shit like that, but I don't think fining them and then like taking it out on your workers was the answer.
Yeah, they were going to take his career. They were going to take both of those players' careers from them for doing that. When this person tried to do something really, really fucking dangerous.
I mean, if you actually hit him and hurt him and taken him out of your league, would you have laughed it off? No.
Right. He could have took his career or life. So you can kind of understand why he's upset enough to want to beat the shit out of this motherfucker.
And it's, I mean, one, they didn't side with those, athletes, but two, they didn't really do anything to try and prevent it. And I don't get the sense that they care to do that.
Yeah.
And it's not like you could be like, oh, well, we don't want to affect our bottom line or something. Like, I don't see any financial argument.
Thing. That's usually always the thing. They don't want to veer too far on the fans because the fans are buying the tickets. They're watching the games.
What are the fans going to do? Like, they're still going to watch this shit.
I totally agree. But everybody's
like, oh, we can't, side with this long-haired motherfucker with a knee, fuck, what's his name? Colin Kaepernick. Like, all worried about that, and all these people like, oh, we're gonna stop watching the NFL. No, you're not. Come on.
Right.
This shit is crack for you guys. You're not gonna stop watching the NFL. Grow the fuck up. I bet most of the people who said anything like that didn't stop watching it for more than like a week. At best. Like, it's an empty threat. It is. I'm pretty sure the company knows that it is as well. Nobody believes that. Like, there's no real threat here. For better or worse, sports are a financial juggernaut. Like, when everything was shutting down, one of the biggest complaints I heard from everybody across the fucking country was missing sports. Going back and like rewatching old games on, I guess they were like replaying on ESPN or whatever, like, you're one of the most secure fucking industries there is. You don't have to worry about this.
Yeah. Like, all of the talk about how like we're not going to watch sports during the pandemic, when all these teams were doing all these things for George Floyd and they were letting people wear Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. Put political statements on their jerseys and things like that. Y'all still were watching it. Root for your team. You still were arguing with each other, picking fights among each other.
What do you think is going to happen, really? That somebody's going to start up a new league and really outcompete you? That's just not going to fucking happen.
No.
Not at this point. These major league sports are fucking juggernauts. The NBA, the NFL, NHL.
They're all $1 billion a year.
MLB. every one of them is like, you know, people always joke about Vince McMahon starting up the XFL or whatever, and they should, because it's a dumb idea, because the NFL is not going to be overtaken probably ever.
Yeah.
And not just because it's big, but because it has so much fucking history to it. Like, people, what I noticed from sports fan is it's not just about watching, you know, the game that's happening right now. It's about reminiscing over whatever stupid fucking game you watched with your dad 15 years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
or not even just like that. It's just the team. You become loyal to a certain team, and you just, it's a thing. Hey.
Yeah, it's talked about as if it's just like in the moment entertainment, but it's not. It's historical, cultural stuff that people attach to. I think one of the reasons I'm not currently that into sports is because I just didn't really have it in the house growing up. And when I talk to other friends who are like, how could you not be into sports? I'm like, I think you think that it's weirder than it is because you grew up watching football from like since the day you were born. Like, I have friends, I forgot what sport team they're a fan of, which is crazy because they're always posting it on fucking Facebook, but like, they were dressing their infants and babies up in fucking sports paraphernalia. So I'm like, I know those two boys are going to be fucking sports fans because they're dressed up and part of this sports culture with that team.
Yeah.
Before they can even speak. Like, all NFL licensed gear, you know what I mean? So like, that's why I say, like, they shouldn't be worried about standing up for what's right because they're more secure than probably any other industry.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I can't think of anything that's more constant than sports. Like, as far as a form of entertainment, like actors and stuff will go and come. And, you know, in sports, the nature is for players to go and come anyway. So hating on a certain player is not going to do anything because, again, you brought up Colin Kaepernick. All y'all motherfuckers screaming about how wrong Colin Kaepernick is. I haven't seen none of y'all not be San Francisco 49ers fans, though. So, yeah, it's like that. But but the whole thing with the way that they treat fans and stuff kind of bleeds into the other sports topic that I wanted to bring up. And me and you were talking about this earlier today, which is the whole that the media also seems to have over these sports organizations and these teams to not want to like say anything or like offend them or alienate them and stuff like that. Naomi Osaka, professional women's tennis player, a perennial champion. She's pretty much the new thing. Like, I guess for those who may not know her name, she kind of is the new Serena Williams in the sport. If that helps.
Let Serena hear you say that shit, she'll come after you.
No, I mean, yeah.
Bitch, I'm still here.
I mean, I wish she would, but but you know what I mean. Like, she's the modern like version of Serena, where Serena is the GOAT. She's like the second coming in a lot of people's minds of Serena. Hopefully, that's a little better, Serena.
I think it's fair. Like, I've heard of her at this point. You know what I mean, like,
yeah.
She's reached a certain level of stardom that even I know who she is. So,
yeah. Well, leading into this weekend, she had made comments about how like she didn't want to do press conferences anymore because she was having a difficult time dealing with the whole media circus and the questions that have been asked and how people have come at her at these interviews. And she was just like, I just want to focus on tennis. I'm not going to be doing any press conferences. I know you're going to find me. If you're going to find me, at least take the money and give it to charities or something. But I just can't deal with it right now. And that caused a big stir. So much of a stir that the people running the French Open were threatening to expel her from the matches if she would avoid any more press conferences. Well, she told them to go fuck themselves, and she actually withdrew herself from the French Open, which started, I believe, today, or was it yesterday? I forget which, but yeah, she just basically said, I'm just not going to deal. So I'm out. Y'all have fun. Peace. It just started a lot of controversy because people were like, you know, of course, you have fans and you have people in the media who think that she was wrong for what she did. You also have people who are on her side and think that, yeah, she's very, very smart to actually take her personal well-being ahead of everything else and not bother. Of course, and I'm gonna send you the statement because I didn't send it to you earlier. The people at Roland Garros, the place where they play the French Open, they have put out a statement asking that she would please reconsider playing in the tournament and things like that. Saying that they would issue her the fine, but they, had to remind her that she does have an obligation and blah, 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 towing the line. Kind of say the rules are the rules, but we still want you to play. So it's pretty interesting. Speaking of Serena, by the way, she's kind of now getting a little heat for the comments that she made, but we'll get to that later. Just knowing what you know of the Naomi Osaka stuff, what's your feelings on this?
I think I'm sorry, I'm just laughing over the fact, we took your money, but you still gonna play, right? Like, I didn't know that part until you just said that.
Yeah.
So. We talked a bit about it earlier, and I was asking partially because I wanted to ask some questions about what sports media is like for somebody who actually sees it, because I saw some people in comments saying like, oh, if you want to be here, you should be able to live up to your responsibilities and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, who really gives a shit whether she talks to them or not? I didn't know some of the context that you spelled out, which is, the kind of unpleasant interaction she's been having with them. I just figured they were asking her whatever dumbass questions they always, ask, whatever uninteresting talking points they want to touch. But regardless of what the talking points were, I just thought, if she doesn't want to talk to them, who cares? Her job is not entertainer. Like, again, in my mind, as somebody who does not watch this sport really, but sports in general, I guess I was of the impression that these athletes are here to do athletic shit. They're not really here to be like interesting personalities. So if she doesn't want to talk to them, I don't know what you're really losing here from that. You're not going to ask her interesting questions. Even if you were, I don't know that like asking her questions at the game is the appropriate time to ask anything thought-provoking. Like, I have this image in my head of like some reporter just like walking up to an athlete, I don't know, like right after a game, they're all sweaty and shit, trying to ask them questions. So like, this is not really the appropriate time or place to talk about anything serious. I've never really, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I've never really respected that format of journalism, I guess.
Okay, so the post-game interview thing. I get why they do it, and I get why they want it. Because people like natural reactions. It's just the thing. Like, especially to get somebody at the highest point naturally reaction, and really especially to get somebody at the lowest point reacting. Because for the media, they're just looking for a very good soundbite. They need that highlight that they can put on. A lot of times, they won't admit it, but they're waiting for somebody to say something outlandish. Yeah, they're asking some of the most generic questions, but they're also hoping that the person will give them enough to where they could steer it into the wild shit. Or they could get a response to these questions that is like really, really like off the chain. I'm thinking about a particular player, Bart Scott. He was a linebacker for the New York Jets football team at the time, and they just had a major upset against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots that year. who is a rival of theirs. And, was it Tom Brady? I forget. I don't know if it was. No, I don't know if it was Tom Brady. I forget who it was. Whoever it was, he was really, really excited. And he's like, they're doing an interview and they were like, how, tell us about the game. And he's just like all over the place, like, yo, everybody said that we couldn't do this. We couldn't beat them. Now look at you. Like, y'all kept talking about how great they are and how great this are. But we came in, we showed y'all and all that stuff. He's just like really, really hyped. And the thing that made the interview like really the most popular, it made him really popular. Because like he's just like super amped and pumped up. And like, after like he answers like whatever they said, the reporter was like, all right, Bart, well, we'll see you next game. He just goes, can't wait. Like and walked off the field. And so it became like this famous thing. You get moments like that where you get these incredible, like fucking candid pops. But for the most part, you're just getting like, we played hard and the team did execute it well. And, blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, they're a tough opponent. We respect them. You don't really get a lot out of it, but it's standard fare, and they're looking for the moments. Just like in the press conference, they're always looking for the moments. And if anything, it helps them do their job and they get to write their sound bites and whatever, or have their like, segments on TV, what have you, and stuff like that. So I guess it makes them feel some type of way when players don't want to do these things and don't want to interact. Because like I was trying to tell you earlier, it's kind of like I was telling you about that moment of this like biopic where they're showing this player who didn't like talking to the media, and he skipped an interview, and the guy was going off like, we try to make him look good, and we try to like give him excuses for his personality. Just because he's a good ball player doesn't mean that we got to be like, treat him a certain way, blah, 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 blah. It's like a lot of media, even today, still get in their feelings when players have something negative to say or don't want to be bothered with the media. I recall Stephen A getting upset, when Kevin Garnett's mom had something to say to him because he was saying how his son is soft because he's going to play on the team that has a bunch of great players to get a championship. He's not trying to like win it on his own. And, Stephen A is just like, yeah, well, it's my job. That's how it was my opinion. You don't get mad at me for that. I'm not like taking it up personally on him. I think he's a great player and all that, but in my professional opinion, this is how I feel about it. And it's, you got to deal with it. It's always that like, y'all got to deal. We don't have to deal type of relationship.
I just say that sounds like a dumb opinion. Shame on this athlete for wanting to join a good team to win. In the sports to win.
We could have a whole episode about the whole, like, you're not as great as you think you are because you did this moment. Sports fans are dumb.
Like crazy. Yeah. Like if I'm on a sports team, I'm not gonna pick some random motherfucker off the street, right? Like I want to be part of an elite group.
Look, again, like I said, you can do like
I'll let it go. I'm just
you
like,
can do 4 or 5. We can do 4 or 5 episodes on things that people prejudge sports fans about.
I'll let it go. I just when you said it, I'm like, his whole argument is that he's a professional. This is his job. This is his professional opinion. I'm like, well, that's kind of a stupid professional opinion, at least to me.
Yeah, again,
like I wouldn't be bragging that this is your well-informed opinion.
I could probably explain it in the sports context, but I could also say as a sports fan, sometimes that context is kind of fucked. So
I'll let it go for that.
Yeah. Like it's no, like I said, we'd be here all day if I actually focus on that. But that's just the point. It's just like, the relationship with sports players and the media has always been kind of a volatile thing. It's like it's hard to be cordial because like If I don't respond to you in the way that you think I should, I'm a problem. If I respond to you honestly, I'm a problem. If I don't say anything and just be coy and like be like Marshawn Lynch, who a football player who hated doing the press, but they were always like, you have to do these press conference. So when he would answer, he'd be like, yes, sure. He'd just give blank answers because he was like, I got to be here. So I'm just going to do what I have to do while I'm here and leave because he didn't want to be here. And everybody knew he didn't want to be here. So he just did the bare minimum. You know, you're going to eat shit as an athlete. And these organizations aren't going to necessarily back you because, again, it's kind of like with the fans thing. It's like, well, the media does the promotions and things, you know, free publicity you can get through the media. You know, the media connects the most with the fans because sports fans watch sports media. Ergo, if something is said on sports media, sports fans will take that and they can like use it, you know, against you and stuff like that. So it's another like being held hostage by like, you know, things that leads to these organizations to not be like, you know what, that's cool. I get it. You're going through some stuff and you have problems, you know. All right, cool. Instead, you get statements like this, like, look, the rules are rules, you know. Other players that have to experience it too, and stuff like that. And it's really weird when it comes to star players because star players get allowed and afforded a lot of like leeway in other instances that are they probably shouldn't get. But in this instance, they don't get it at all when it comes to fans of the media, which is weird. It's like LeBron James just got in trouble because he broke COVID protocol for the NBA by attending a party without telling anybody. Now, normally, you're supposed to sit out for at least 10 days, 10 to 14 days, to make sure that you go through contact tracing, that you don't have anything and you're not spreading it to everybody else. But because the playoffs were starting, they just gave him a fine and let him play. And then another player immediately decided, oh, well, that's what you're going to do to him. Let's see what you're going to do to me. And he went to a strip club and they had to let him get off with just a fine because he was another like star player in the playoff situation.
Yeah, rules are not very useful if you don't actually enforce them. Saying, just listening to that, it occurs to me like, just a couple of things, I guess, about sports fan culture. Earlier when we talked about this, part of my argument was I would much prefer, I mean, to the extent that you want to hear an athlete talk at all, or care about them as a person, I want to get to know them as a person and know what they think and all that shit. I would much prefer to see them talk in a different setting, like on a talk show or a podcast. That's like, on a talk show, it's usually like 10 minutes maybe. It's a pretty short format, but it's a more comfortable setting. It's not like right after a game. It's a more thoughtful conversation than just like, whatever random shit they want to ask them off the field or off the court. Whereas a podcast, a lot of podcasts nowadays are an hour or two long. So hour and a half to 2. So they just allow for like a much longer conversation. That's Andrew Yang was in the news the other day. That's how I got to know him. Like he happened to be in a podcast I listened to. He got the chance to talk in my ear for like fucking 2 hours. So I was like, okay, I kind of get what he's about. So my argument at the time was like, the sports media to me does not seem like a good format for this kind of shit anyway. If you really insist on doing this, like this is not really the way to do it. But you said something there earlier that, sports fans watch sports media. And I guess I didn't consider that fact that like, if you are a sports fan and you are into this culture, you probably really are watching all that shit and, going to ESPN or whatever and actually watching all that coverage. Maybe to you that format is better. I hadn't really considered that. So that's one thing I just thought of. I still make the argument that I don't see that an athlete must be a celebrity, if that makes sense. Like, I don't, if you're there to perform as an athlete, to compete, that should be the only requirement. You shouldn't be required to be a personality that people have to hear. If you want to do that, that's fine. But like, I don't, because earlier we talked about, I said something like, not every person is particularly charismatic or funny or interesting or has something important to say. And I don't really care to hear what every athlete has to say, especially if they don't actually want to talk. I think you see this, especially now that we have like social media, and celebrities in general are a little bit more in touch with the fans through social media. There's this sort of expectation of celebrities to just they kind of must present themselves to the world. Like, they kind of have to have some sort of connection with the fan base. And I don't think that should be a requirement or anything. Like, if you just want to be like a person off on your own and not do media and shit, who cares? That just means we don't get to know you, but there's a lot of motherfuckers I don't know in the world.
And the onus is always on them to present themselves in the proper manner. Like you just said, like even with like non-sports, people, all forms of entertainers have this thing where they have to present themselves in a certain way, or at least that's what society dictates. And it goes to like some of the like opinions I've seen in the fact that maybe it's our problem and not their problem. Maybe we shouldn't make this such a big a deal to where we need them to be what we need them to be, rather than we should just enjoy their talents, their art, what have you, and just come to terms with the fact that, hey, these are actually people. They're not fucking, again, to go back to the statement that the basketball player made, they're not animals in a zoo. This isn't a circus. This isn't like.
This might sound a little mean, but like, I don't mind treating them like animals in a zoo in the sense that I'm just watching them do whatever they do. Like, I had a conversation with a friend not too long ago, right?
But no, that's not the point. It's like, to watch what they do, that's one thing. But it's once you start poking at the animals.
Yeah, I got this.
Like, that's where it gets to be the problem.
Yeah, I got the analogy. I just meant it can work if you change it a little bit. But I had a conversation with a friend about like musicians, right? Like, they were kind of like going through the backstory of this one musician, and they were kind of asking me about my thoughts about, certain musicians. I think because some musician must have gotten in trouble for something at the time. And, they were a fan of this musician, and they kind of asked, like, if you were a fan of somebody and they did something fucked up, like, how do you feel or whatever? And I was like, I think I'm different than most people in that I don't really care about most entertainers as people per se. Like I'm a big fan of Eminem, right? If it's music, and that's the key word there. I listen to a lot of Eminem's music. I don't really care that much about Eminem's life, or if you like Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, like I listen to their music, I guess, but I don't really go out of my way to like look up their Wikipedia page, figure out where they were fucking born, like follow all their tweets and shit. Like I enjoy the product of their labor. I don't really care to know them as if we're friends. We're not. Like, I don't care about them enough to do that. But I think most people aren't like that. I see people all the time. They'll go out of their way to like look up whatever the fuck such and such a random entertainer or athlete is doing. What's this athlete's opinion on this musician? What do they do in their regular life? I'm like, why do you want to know these people so fucking intimately? It's kind of weird, isn't it? So I think that's part of the reason that, there's so much pressure to have all this media scrums, because people want that sort of intimate knowledge of a person.
Yeah, it's why reality TV works so well, though.
Even for things that are inappropriate, like, I'm a wrestling fan. We were talking about Brody Lee earlier, but other cases too, where sometimes like a wrestler like goes away, or they're not doing something, maybe they have an illness or something, and people will like bully them on social media, like, tell us what's really fucking. Even when Brody, after he passed away, people were like bullying his fucking family to tell them, why he died. And it was like, this is so far fucking inappropriate. You actually are not entitled to that information.
Yeah.
Or I remember not too long ago, what's her name? Allie on AEW. Like, she wasn't wrestling for a while. I guess there was some like mental issues going on there. Like, she did not owe you guys an explanation for that. Like, I don't know why everybody thinks that if you ask a question, a celebrity should have to answer you.
Because we make you. You wouldn't be famous without us. We pay your salary. We don't go see your movies or your games or what have you. You wouldn't be who you are. And you know what? To an extent, that's true. But you could also say that to your fucking cashier at the grocery store. You ain't coming at them and be like, yo, I need to know if you got kids or not. Why you won't tell me? You wouldn't get paid if I didn't shop at your grocery store. Like, we don't do that to other people in other professions in which we have a similar impact, you know. So why them? Why they get the brunt of that?
Right. So that's why I was just confused when, what's her name? Naomi, I guess.
Yeah.
Getting all this stuff. I'm like, I don't really give a shit if Naomi ever talks ever. Like, if she literally came in and played tennis and never said a word to the point where we don't know what her voice sounds like, to me, that's fine. She can do that. Like, the job is to perform as an athlete and play the sport and see if you can win or lose. And theoretically, you get the best athletes performing or competing and see what happens. Like, you know, I know it's fun when like a Conor McGregor can't shut the fuck up, but if Conor McGregor was also just a quiet, reserved dude and just wanted to come in and fight, that you shouldn't be punished for that.
Yeah. But it's like, I appreciate when they want to engage with people and share their thoughts and whatnot, or maybe they're comfortable with giving you an insight on who they are and things like that. But I don't need it. And maybe that's why I'm weird, because I don't need it.
Like, I wouldn't stop you, but even just personality wise, we're not all that fucking extroverted. Everybody just wants to like grab a mic and just start spitting for like an hour and just start talking to the press.
But see, the counter argument is always like, well, you put yourself in the public eye. So, and I was like, I get that to an extent. But I don't. Also, no, I get it to the extent it's like you put yourself in the public eye. So if you do certain things in public or you say certain things in public, like, well, that's fair game. But I also think it's fair game that just because you do something that's public don't mean that you have to put everything else out there. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think
like if I say something stupid in public, but that's exactly, that's the thing. Like if I say something stupid in public and I get fucked for it, well, I chose to do that. So I get that aspect of it. But the fact that I decide to play for the Denver Broncos because I want to play football, that's not a license for you to fucking have access to any and every element of me in my life, or that I owe you my time because I put in the work and the commitment to be someone within this profession.
Right, because when I saw people making the comment like, well, if you want to be here, this is part of the job, this is what you got to do, this is, you're putting yourself out here. It's like she's putting herself in the position of an athlete and you're kind of carrying the extra baggage of celebrity. Like these, I guess the fucked up thing is they're somehow not separable. Like you can't be an athlete and not be a celebrity for some reason.
But I'll put it to you in another way. Like, why do you? Like, why is it a hard, fast rule that because I do A, I am committed to do B? Because she is Naomi Osaka and she's competing in one of the major events in tennis, or that she's just a major tennis player, period, or played tennis, period. Why is it the rule that I have to speak with the media no matter what my mental, physical, whatever condition is.
Right. Like, I guess as I'm thinking about it, like it seems to me that most people take for granted that a celebrity or that an athlete is an athlete inherently has the, you know, quote unquote responsibilities that a celebrity does. And that's why I said, like, they're not really the same thing. So I don't know why it's like they're inherently intertwined like that.
Because you're famous. Because you're in something that's been watched. Whenever you're in something that's being followed by a lot of people, you inherit fame. So that's why it's treated that part I get. But when I say this about her, but when I say this about her, I'm not just saying about her as just an athlete. I'm saying about her as a famous person, because I feel the same way with any celebrity. Why are you inherently obligated to give certain things and to put up with certain things just because you're famous or you're popular? You didn't necessarily like force us to make you popular. We made you popular because we like you a lot. That don't mean that you need to capitulate and like do everything that we will you to do.
Like if you're an actor, you know, you say you act like in a movie series or something, and you never want to appear, you know, you never want to have anything to do with social media or interviews. You only ever want to act and just do that. That should be fine. Yet it seems like it's not feasible. And partially because, you know, the studios seem to send these guys out to do interviews just as part of hyping up the movie, which to me is sometimes a bad idea because some of these motherfuckers are not that charismatic. I can't remember who I'm thinking of, but I remember this like one really awkward interview somebody had with the Colbert or something. And I'm like, bro, the guy's a weirdo. Like maybe he's good in this movie, but he's not like a regular sit down and talk to motherfucker kind of people, kind of person. But yeah, like we just take it for granted. If you are famous at all, part of the definition of being famous means that you must have a connection with us, the regular assholes who want to know about you. Again, maybe I just don't vibe with that because I am too much of an asshole to give a shit about you as a person. That sounds mean. Like I honestly hope like everybody has like a good, happy life and shit, but I've just never been like that. Like I've just never.
Yeah. And like,
again, yeah, I brought up Eminem, right? For example, if Eminem was like across the street offering like handshakes and autographs, I probably wouldn't even make the effort to walk across the street. I'd be quite literal. Like as much as I like his music, I just don't care about this motherfucker.
Yeah. And again, like I get certain things. Like again, you do something publicly, your fame is going to just it's a natural fact. It's going to get talked about a lot because it's something publicly. But again, it goes for all of us. Don't do dumb shit publicly. You don't have to worry about nobody talking about it. Yeah, that's just the bottom line. But yeah, it's definitely, yeah.
Can I just say, like, just generally, I think the press in a lot of Americans' minds is becoming more and more unlikable because, like, I mean, just in general, it's not even just like Fox. Like I hear people talk about like CNN, like all of the major news networks, even social media people are distrustful of. When I think about these groups, I'm like, part of the reason I don't care to hear their work is because often the questions seem just intentionally to be provocative. Like, and not necessarily to make the athlete or performer or whatever say something like really fucking incriminating, but they always feel like they're leading them, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to get their little soundbite. And you even on major news networks where I might like, you know, the host or the anchor or whatever, if they're interviewing a person and they ask like a very pointed question or phrase it a specific way, or before they get to the question, they'll kind of like build up the scenario to be like, you know, lead them into saying what they kind of want them to say. It's like, you guys have no fucking restraint, do you? Like, I don't trust you motherfuckers because you're not, I don't know if honest is fair, but there's definitely ulterior motives whenever you ask people questions. You're not just trying to like get to know them and like get to know what they think. You want the like whatever quote headline you're going to use at the bottom of your video.
Yeah. It's yeah.
I
It's
think that's part of the reason I prefer like the talk show / podcast format, because I mean they do it too, but it's a much more natural conversation, so it's not as fucking blatant. Because a lot of the times these guys are only, they can only ask like one or if there's a bunch of reporters or something like that, or it's like a very short period, they gotta have to get to the point. So they're gonna try and get you in that fucking verbal trap immediately.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because like this whole with the NBA players and with her, it's just like it's just wild. And I think the thing is, a lot of people aren't understanding that things are changing, the dynamics are changing. These people aren't as willing to put up with the old conventions, like in everything in life, and this is just one of them. You know, and it's just like with the Serena Williams comments, where people are trying to get mad at her. I totally get what she was saying about, like, yeah, I have thicker skin, and it makes more like Serena Williams like made a comment saying like I have thicker skin, some people don't, but she went on to say at the end of the day, people need to handle things the way that they, can do best for them. She hopes that she's doing what she feels is best for her and for her well-being. But people took the whole she has thicker skin, somebody don't thing as a jab at her being weak, which it totally wasn't. Because the reality is, like, and I think part of the reason why I think for me, I'm more so able to relate to what Serena said is because we come from a different era, me and her, where a lot of these things, that are discussed now openly, like mental health and, social issues with athletes weren't the norm. You kind of did, quote unquote, have to have thicker skin because you were more so expected to deal. And when you were that person to speak out, you were a lot more isolated than you are now. Like you have so many more people willing to speak out on things, and like what I mentioned. Whereas back then, people didn't do it as much, and people didn't back you as much. So you became a pariah, things like that's where she went to the whole thing. Like she was just happy she had people to talk to because you didn't really have anybody to talk to. Most of us don't really have anybody to talk to about this openly with. But she was fortunate to have people in her, group that she could at least do to help her deal with these things in the way that she didn't feel like she could in front of like the media and stuff like that when having to deal with their bullshit. And that's how it was. It's like it is with life anyway. Like things get better. You can't blame parents from the 80s for their prenatal care because they didn't know about certain methods that we do now. You know what I mean? Things like that. Like as time develops and things get like you learn more and society just change and things become better. It gets better. Yeah, you can make the argument that, well, maybe if you would have said something, well, there are people who said something. We wouldn't get to the point where it is now. There are people who said something who didn't work to find those things. But not everybody has the ability or the access to do that. So you can't just like fucking get mad at her for, saying that, yes, she had thicker skin. Because again, her time coming up is a lot different than Naomi's time coming up.
I suppose I don't even know if that factor worth thinking about. Like just naturally, some people are able to deal with certain things.
And that too.
Yeah, like, I'm sure there's people that Naomi's age who, would deal with it worse or deal with it better. It is just a true statement about how people are. We're not all wired the same, otherwise we'd all be the same asshole.
But no, I think I say that because I know a lot of the comments that I've seen have kind of been geared towards like, she just don't understand, like, well, maybe it was like that. Like, everything has context, like I said before. And you have to take the context of the way she said it, and you realize that, yeah, her way of dealing with things is much different than people's way of dealing with things now. And even then, like you said, there's still people out there who prefer to deal with it her way.
And to say like, oh, she doesn't get it because she's older and had to do, well, that's not a valid argument either way. It's not relevant enough to dismiss her point. So
it's not valid to say that she don't get it, because she clearly gets it. If she wouldn't have said that she has to do what she needs to do to like make things best for her. So clearly she gets it. She didn't dismiss it. You talked
about people not reading when you sent me that thing, people not reading articles. And I looked briefly at the comment section. I remember somebody saying like, we need to be helping out here, not fucking making fun of and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, this is one bitch that didn't read at all, because Serena did not make fun of her at all. She was very supportive. So clearly you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which I think also goes back to the way media comports themselves sometimes. Because I'm trying to remember what like the headline of that thing was, but
it just had the blurb like, I have thicker skin, some people don't.
There was like a secondary part to it that I can't. I wish I could remember.
Let me see if I could put it up. But like, yeah. By the way, you fucked up the DMs with that dude. That's the first thing that you see is this white boy gyrating. Your day. You also kind of fucked it up with the Thunder Rosa thing.
Hey man. Hey. Let me stop.
Yeah, Serena Williams feels for, but that's the thing. The caption actually says Serena Williams feels for Naomi Osaka, but says media scrutiny made her stronger.
Right.
That's a weird fucking way to frame that.
Right. That's the part I remember, because like it made it sound like she was saying like, look, I get it, but don't be a bitch. Like that's not what she said. Like
it really isn't. Because if you actually read it, it wasn't the scrutiny that made her stronger. She actually says that she was able to get through it because she had people outside who helped her through it. Nothing to do with the media. And it was just like, okay, so you're trying to jerk yourselves off and say, well, we made her a better person. What's wrong with you, Naomi? No, that's not what she said. She said y'all are bullshit. She literally said y'all are bullshit.
I could imagine being in like Naomi's shoes and just seeing that fucking headline and being like, wow, Serena's coming after me too. Just because of how they did that. And so many media organizations do this. Like they're clearly trying to, obviously it's not just clickbait, oh, look at this interesting, thought-provoking thing. They're kind of trying to stir up a little drama. And I've seen it even with other celebrities where like sometimes like a celebrity will like kind of freak out about something somebody else said, not realizing that it's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, especially as a wrestling fan, because people will like retweet things like, what's that fucking idiot's name? Dave Meltzer says. And then like, they're taken completely out of context, but they'll forward them to the wrestlers anyway to kind of like get a rise out of the wrestlers, and the wrestlers don't bother to listen. So they just start responding based on whatever clip somebody sent them.
Now, to be fair, Dave Meltzer does say some bullshit, so reading it might not have helped.
He does, like I remember,
but there are times where, like, if with anybody, like if you just read the clip and you don't actually read the entire thing, it doesn't. Yeah, nah.
I think it was like Peyton Royce or somebody got like super mad because of something somebody forwarded, and it's like I think you missed the point of what he was getting at there. Because he was not talking at all about the thing you're fucking pissed about. But like, you know what? It's not even just, it's the media, but it is also like the people on Twitter too, who will like,
oh my God. Sorry.
Try very hard to forward offensive things to celebrities that kind of piss them off and get a reaction out of them. Like the culture is kind of building itself around pissing famous people off to make them do dumber shit.
Yeah. By the way, the reason I said, oh my God, and I sent you something, but now I know why uh, a basketball player is trending. So a player ran onto the court during a game, and a basketball player had to take him down.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, a
Why
fan
did he
just
do
came
this?
out the stands because he's a fucking idiot.
I thought wrestling fans weren't shit.
And I don't blame the fan for taking him down. I mean, the player for taking him down.
Can you imagine like trying to, do your best at a sport and like in the back of your mind, you're like, some motherfucker might just like randomly sprint onto the court and try to come at me?
I'm sorry, the player didn't take him down. The security actually caught him. Yeah.
But like I don't know to what extent that distracts him, but that would be in my head. I would just be like, fucking dribbling, just like watching to see if anybody on the sidelines makes any sudden moves. I love this shot though. Like the man's just like standing there, fucking looking at him.
Yeah, I know.
They're just having a conversation. Like, come on, buddy. What are we doing? What are you doing? Come on.
Right.
Man. He should be arrested, but like,
yeah.
Hey, I'm sure they'll ban him from a game. That'll teach him.
Right. Like he can't come back and buy tickets. Yeah.
Run on the court and touch the backboard. Why?
Right. Why during a game?
You just felt like, oh man, it'd be so fucking cool if, or what if your dumbass friends bet you could do that? Because now that I look at the picture more closely, it looks like he's kind of like smiling, like he thinks it's funny or something. It's hard to tell because he's wearing a mask, but
by the way, that was a good tackle by the security officer. Nice, clean tackle. Good arm wrap. Drove right through it.
I might be imagining it, but it looks like he thinks it's funny.
Who, the basketball player?
No, the fucking guy on the ground. Like, it looks like he's smiling.
He probably does think it's funny because he's thinking, oh, cool, I got to do it.
And he has his hands up like, I would, I'm just fucking around, not trying to do nothing crazy. Like,
yeah, he thinks
you're not taking seriously enough what happened here.
They all think that shit's funny. The people who were talking to John Moran's mom, talking about like sexual shit to her, they think that shit's funny. And like, I feel bad for dude's dad because I would honestly want to get up and beat the shit. Like, you talking to my wife, you do realize this, right? Like, don't play with me. Don't play with my wife. But as the father of a basketball player, he can't do anything because then that will reflect bad on his son. And that will cause problems for his son. It's like, that's some fuck shit. Fuck that. It should make his son even more of a love. Like, look, my dad beat the shit out of somebody who's fucking with my mom, and I'll beat the shit out of you too. And then we should all celebrate him for that attitude because that guy deserved to be having his ass beat.
I guess, but it also helps normalize fighting.
Oh no, this ain't a fight. I'm beating your ass. Fight is like we having the competition. I am fucking beating you, and you're not doing anything back, and you deserve this.
If I'm just another dude watching this, I'm like, all right, this is a place where we handle our problems with violence. So, like,
at that moment, I choose violence.
And I don't think that's unreasonable.
Don't do that to my mom.
I don't think that's an unreasonable reaction. I'm just saying, like, not sure about this. I mean, it feels like part of the sports ball culture is to, like, get drunk and be a dude. And it feels like it's kind of feeding more into it. Where it's
I know.
There's no fucking actual rules.
But honestly, people like that probably do need to have shit beaten to their head because they got issues. And banning him from a game ain't going to stop him. Because now he just gets on Twitter, he can fuck with this dude, which is probably what he'll do anyway. And then he'll get blocked. Okay. He'll find some other way to do some dumb shit.
He got that motherfucker right in
the dumb fuck.
Yep. He got him. Sorry, I'm sorry, guys. I'm watching the clip of this tape.
No, like I said, it was a good like football technique tackle. Like, bam. Like I said, he wrapped up properly. He hit him square. He drove through.
Even on the ground, his ground game was good. He kept control of the legs while he like pulled up to control the torso and all that shit. Kept him pinned. Like, all right. Yeah. You got a lot of cops that couldn't do that. I'm just saying.
Nah, that's a well-trained trained security officer.
Like that man, I don't worry that man hurt himself on that fall. He seems fine.
Yeah, nah. Yeah, he didn't hit him too hard.
Man took him down and protected him at the same time.
I mean, I wouldn't mind if he would have hit him too hard, because you dumbass. Again, I shouldn't be so violent, but it just bothers me that these people think that this is just cool behavior. And like you said, all he's going to get is you can't come back.
I feel like the people in charge are not looking at this and being like, we need to get this under control. At most, they're like, all right, this is kind of annoying, but I don't feel like they're going to do anything about it. Unless maybe somebody actually gets hurt or killed, and then maybe they'll receive too much pressure to not do anything, but I would be surprised if they feel inclined to. But yeah, shout out to that dude. And then I'm just reminded as I'm clicking through about fucking Aloy. God, we talk about such important things.
Yeah, it's...
Well, I think the sports thing is important. I just am reminded that Aloy's face is a controversy.
Don't get me started in that mess. All right. Y'all, act like human beings. I guess you are in a way, which is even sadder. Fuck.
What was that dumb thing? Make America Great Again? Can we make America like adults again, respectful again? Like,
oh yeah, make humanity great again. Shit. Like, I guess it never was great. I don't know.
I said the other day that like, professionalism isn't even expected in politics, but like it feels like across the board, like people don't expect to have to act like adults in general.
Yeah.
Need some consequences for these motherfuckers, I'm not saying getting your hand cut off, but maybe getting your hair cut.
Yeah, something. Anyway, that is it for this episode. Any suggestions for people? Anything you've been reading?
I would just say still check out The Land of the Big Numbers. That book I mentioned last podcast has a few fictional short stories about life in China. I finished it after the podcast. It's, again, maybe because I don't go through fiction enough, but I find it very gripping.
Okay, then. Guess that sums that up. I'm just sitting here blown at these people and their behavior.
But again, like if you have never really thought about what life in China is actually like, it might be a nice little illustration to think about.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a bad thing to know what goes on over there. It's a good distraction for what goes on over here, which is some bullshit in itself. All right, ladies and gentlemen. It really just like bothers me. Like I really want to like do violent things to these people right now, and that's not good. I hate stupid people. I swear. Anyway.
You could ban fans from games altogether. Make it a permanent thing. You could not ever really do that, but like
no, you really can't. Sorry, that's not gonna happen. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening and watching. By the way, some good news. We officially have a SoundCloud open, and I am currently about to start uploading all past and current episodes. Please be patient. As for this one, we have over 100. We have about 20 more His Point Her View podcast to upload. We have what? Oh gosh. A bunch of the other ones. Like Jesus Christ, I got hundreds of podcasts to upload to the SoundCloud. So please be patient with me as I go through this and I kill myself trying to make sure I'm able to get all of these things up for you guys to consume. So keep that in mind. And I will make sure to put the link in the description so you guys could see it. Anyway, thank you again. We appreciate it. Hope you guys had a good weekend, all that good stuff. We will see you next time on the Reason Reborn. Peace. Jesus.